Welcome to The Woman Called You. I am Ohunene Scott-Ananaba, and I go by the acronym OSA. You're welcome to this final installment of. Yes, I hope you caught the first and second parts. The first part being things you shouldn't let get in your way as you choose to move forward, and the second part, things you need to stop doing. And our final installment, that's our part 3, it's titled Things You Need to Start Doing. For the intro of the other two, I reminded us about what moving forward is all about, and I'll just quickly throw it in here. In life, we would move forward, whether in decisions we choose to make, in lifestyle changes, whatever we need to do, especially, coming out of this COVID-19 season. You can be sure so many people will be involved in the decisions they will take. And so I simply put this out there to a woman who really wants to be called you, to understand that these things are a natural progression of life and to make the transition easier where it needs to happen. Because rather than remain in a lodge, like in a valley of indecision, you haven't taken that decision, you need to understand the things you're likely to find as you go ahead or forge on. And when you see there's any kind of resistance, even from yourself, it's natural. You just have to learn to deal with it. It's like coming from the known to unknown. There surely will be situations, or you would have times when you are listless, you seem to just be drifting. But I hope that by the end of today's session, you can actually take a hold of yourself and know it's all going to be all right eventually. So the first thing we'll be talking about this afternoon in knowing when to knowing what to start doing is, number one, a woman has to accept her flaws and imperfections. Truth be told, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. The woman watching me is not perfect. And guess what? Mistakes are a necessary part of life. Whether it's on a daily basis, whether it's on a monthly, weekly, per second, mistakes are a necessary part of life, and they are bound to occur. Whether you do something or you don't do something, mistakes will be bound to occur. And the sooner we begin to understand that we are not perfect, the quicker we will begin to act in the necessary way, whether in spite of, and as a matter of fact, we will begin to cope about our choices, about our decisions to move forward. So I'm saying to a woman today, in spite of whatever it is, understand that we are not perfect. And like in one of the sessions, I think it was somewhere in part 2, when I was discussing things you need to stop doing. So one of the things we need to stop doing is comparison. Constantly comparing ourselves to others. The same people we compare ourselves to, you best believe it, they're probably going through, challenges that are probably way more weightier than whatever challenge you seem to be going through. So the earlier we accept our flaws and imperfections, and trust me, I don't advocate that you build a monument to your flaws and imperfections. No. You work on changing them, but you don't beat up yourself about your flaws and imperfections. I've seen situations where your imperfections become your strength when you know how to properly channel it. I always talk about perception. I speak a lot about optics. What kind of a picture are you presenting? Are you having a pity party over your flaws or imperfections? Or are you owning up to them and deciding to do something about them where you can? And when you're open to accepting your flaws and imperfections and making up your mind to do what you can to deal with them, you'll be open to learning. You'll become teachable. So I'm saying to a woman today, accept your flaws and imperfections And the earlier you begin to work on them, the better. So the next thing for us is learn to see the positives in the negatives and be grateful. Learn to see the positives in the negatives and be grateful. A lot of us, and this is putting it lightly, for every single situation we find ourselves in, we must have reason to to cry, to bemoan our situations, to fail to appreciate what we have staring at us right in our eyes. So I'm saying to a woman today, put on blinders, like I always say. Turn away from that situation. Think about how fortunate you are to even be alive, to consider change of any kind. To be alive, to consider moving forward is enough reason to have a heart full of gratitude. Why bother that you can't take a vacation? Even people who could very well afford to take vacations this season, it's totally out of the question. you know. So instead of bemoaning such things, think about how you can, you know, get support from the people around you. Create your own vacation. Create your own vacation. There are local places you can go to, you know, make yourself happy. Acknowledge the good things in your life. These are things I needed to learn. Instead of bemoaning, we all know that story, of course. It's like an example that is usually used to illustrate the person who was bemoaning his, the absence of shoes in his life until he saw someone who had no feet or had no legs. So it's about time we began to acknowledge the good things that happen in our lives. Even sometimes we must acknowledge the things we're about to give up. Instead of moan about where you're living, acknowledge the fact that there were good things about this thing and treasure the memories and move on. It makes no sense. You're giving up on a career and all you can do is complain. Oh, I don't even understand what's happening. I hate my boss, this, that. And you forget that the career afforded you the good things of life. Yes, I know people are usually not, contentment doesn't come with having the best of jobs and all of that. But the fact that it was the end, rather the means to an end, should be something that should evoke gratitude in you. So I'm saying to a woman today, please, 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 no matter what it is, that thing you're moving on, learn to see the good in it. Do not dwell on the negatives. Then number 3, focus on the future, but not in an obsessive way. To tell you the truth, some of us are obsessive. We are obsessive, constantly thinking about what the future holds. And by doing this, we do not appreciate the process. By doing this, we most times do not even learn from our past. Because if we do not learn from our past, there is no way, no how, seriously, that we can truly appreciate our present and focus on our future. So what I'm saying to us essentially is, in as much as we are, you know, focusing on the future, we also need to make sure that we do not spend too much time worrying on that future, because that is the destructive element. And that is why I said focus on the future, but not in an obsessive way. By all means, plan how you want to go about it. By all means, dream. I was discussing that with a friend a couple of days ago. Dream. But you see what? Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat the little details at all. No matter what the plan for our future is, my sister, neither me, wait there, nor you can predict everything. No way. So what I want to advise somebody on is, in as much as you're focusing on the future, try, just pick one thing, pick one definite goal, and aim high on it. Like for me personally, I've decided to try my A game, because I spent most of this lockdown, improving my knowledge on media strategy and all of that. I took a lot of trainings for every webinar they were doing on social media engagement to improve your business, your marketing, and all of that. I was just from one program online to the other. I guess most of my bills that were coming in were charges from all these things, whether it's the free one, whether it's the one I had to subscribe and all of that. Even this platform I'm streaming on now, I would never have paid it any mind, I would never have paid it any mind. But it was one of the things I took time to learn during this pandemic. I can see now I've been able to brand it, do this, do that. Yes, it's costing me money because I have to pay a subscription. But I've made up my mind that, look, this thing, I want to do all my best, So I'm like aiming high, but setting my goals on doing this. Because if you have too many goals and you begin to scatter your energy left, right, center, it can be counterproductive. So focus on the future, but not in an obsessive way. That's what I'm telling you, woman. Then the next point is think and believe yourself into being. I think there's this popular scripture that says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. I know we have all these motivational lingos. If you can think it, you can do it. I always try to tell people, do not see those words as a cliche. They might sound corny, they might sound like a cliche, but they are not. They're just, an interpretation of divine words, if I put it that way. So what I'm saying to somebody is, start thinking as if you are already what you want to become in that next move you're going into. I'm telling you, even the Word of God tells us, because that's my major crutch. The Word of God says, begin to see things that aren't as if they yet were. So I'm speaking to a woman today. Begin to think yourself, see mental images, behaviors. I remember back then, I'm sure some people will eventually watch this when secondary school with me. I moved to a particular secondary school from another secondary school. So I was entering Form 3. I finished secondary school in 85. So we're speaking of, there was nothing like SS, what was Form 1 to Form 5. And usually, in the school I transited to, if you do not start in that school, you can't be made even senior girls prefects, But it got to a point in my Form 3, which is where I started from. I started imagining myself as the head girl. It was a mixed school, so there was going to be a head boy and a head girl. To cut a long story short, I saw myself into becoming it, and the day my name was mentioned, it was like a shock. But guess what? I just didn't dream it. I made sure I worked purposefully towards it. You couldn't catch me. It was a day school. I never had the privilege of going to boarding school. My friends always tell me I missed out, but well, what you never know, you never miss, so to speak. So, I used to work very hard. I used to make sure I was doing well in school. I used to make sure I wasn't getting into trouble. So it was a preconditioning for me. So when it eventually happened, there was this sense of, in those days now, nothing like, God or whatever. So it was only natural that I'll feel like I worked for it, But that was how it was back then. But with hindsight, I knew at the end of the day, it was God's grace and favor watering my efforts. And I tell you, even the Bible doesn't like sluggards. So when you think sluggishly of yourself, do not expect any kind of, should I say, freebies. Because life doesn't hand us freebies. So a woman has to begin to think and believe yourself into being. Take this as an assignment. You want to move on, you want to move forward. What is the mental picture you have of that person you want to become? What is the mental picture you have of that business? And that, I assure you, will be a stepping stone, a place to start. So number 5, I'm always quick to, I remember it was, I first heard this from Tara Feladutoye of Tara, you know, her House of Tara. And she had this, came for this program, you know, and she spoke to us about the need to pat our own backs, you know, and she said to everybody, pat your back. I call it the need for self-compassion. You must have a little compassion for yourself. No longer should you self-deprecate. You are not the first person to fail, and you won't be the last. So I'm saying to a woman today, with all the sincerity I can muster, do not be hard on yourself. Moving forward is difficult, yes. Moving forward is hard, yes. But all you need to do is one step at a time. The songwriter says, one day at a time, sweet Jesus. One step at a time. We do not draw two breaths at the same time. You must take one breath and then let one out. Take one breath, let one out. Sometimes I imagine if I had to calculate how many breaths we take in a day. But it's the total of breaths we take in a day that makes one full day of being alive. So I'm saying to a woman today, show yourself a little compassion for your weaknesses. Do not berate yourself for your weaknesses. Do not berate yourself for your weaknesses. Instead, reassure yourself Reassure yourself in those weaknesses, because your weaknesses do not define you. Your weaknesses do not define you. Take comfort in people, you know. Take comfort in the people around you. Take comfort in the things you see. Like a very good friend of mine, she would always say, she'll go for a movie. She will do something. We call them familiar comforts. What are your familiar comforts? Watch a movie you like. You know, that's why sometimes I'm not hard on people who will just like certain things on TV, because it becomes a familiar comfort. Or some people who just want to take a plate of nkwobi because that meal is a familiar comfort for them. So pat your own back. I'm telling a woman today, pat your back. Pat your back. Yeah, pat your back. Then number 6, revisit and rebuild your circle. Woman, surround yourself with positive people. You owe it to yourself. When you surround yourself with positive people, the first thing that will begin to happen to you is you begin to maintain a positive attitude. Because when you are moving forward, when there is change and everything around you becomes unfamiliar, you need a little bit of the family around you. See, when you're moving forward, it's not the time for drama. Trust me. Drop every conceivable drama when you choose to move forward. You must drop drama, because drama will be counterproductive. It will be toxic. You must begin to nurture the right relationships. You know, you must stop expecting people, like I always tell people, stop expecting people to act in a certain way. No. You must allow yourself to be pleasantly surprised by the way people will act around you. So you'll be pleasantly surprised when they are good. And honestly, when they're not good, you are not disappointed. So it's best you quickly as possible, you know, how do I put it? Just insulate yourself. Because you need those positive interactions more than you need the negative interactions. Yes, when the negatives happen, they will not surprise you. Just as much as the positives might not. It depends. The positives might even surprise you. But one thing you must stay focused on is that you must let in individuals who would, activate more positive interactions around you. I said, revisit and rebuild your circle. Find somebody you can reliably talk to about every fear and insecurity concerning this your new move. Because there will be fear and insecurity. There will be fear and insecurity. Someone who would advise you. Someone, I have a very, very lovely young lady, we like operate on the same wavelength, but we hardly are in contact with each other. We hardly speak. But whenever she gets, to say something, I actually see for real people who do not do judgment calls. So get somebody in your circle who doesn't make judgment calls to you, especially when you're moving forward. Because when you're moving forward, you're dealing with a lot of things. You are thinking, you're thinking, how am I going to go on? How am I going to do this? But I'm telling somebody today, regardless of what it is, you need people who will speak words of encouragement. People will speak words that will move you on. I'll be rounding up very soon because I promised I wasn't going to do more than 30 minutes on this little series. And before I finish with the remainder, thing I would want to say, I want to say, once you're done with watching this, you may choose to drop some questions. We would always answer them later because, the Woman Culture, we also have a community on WhatsApp where most of our discussions take place. So this is because it's also linked to a streaming platform account. So I need to have all of this also as a record. So like as I was saying, the seventh thing we need to do, we must start doing, is self-care. You must love yourself. For you to move on successfully, you must love yourself. You must choose to love what it is you're moving on to do. Whether you're starting a new business, whether you're going into a new relationship, whether you have chosen, oh my goodness, my turban. You see, this is live, so I can't even do any edits. So whether you have chosen, to buy a new car or move to a new house, you must love yourself first. You must love yourself enough to know that that decision you're taking is not being influenced by any other person. Because you know what? At the end of the day, you would have to live with the consequences and repercussions of your decisions. And God forbid you do not have the right circle, which is number 6 when I said revisit and build your circle if necessary. So there must be a lot of self-care. You must begin to focus on loving yourself daily. What are the things you need to do for self-care? Look at your habits. Number 1. Are your habits giving you joy? That's the truth. Some of us, we are like hooked on habits because friends or spouses or business partners or partners. So you can't continue with habits that are not productive to you. You must look at your interests. You must determine what you are profiting from them, and that's the truth. What are you profiting from those things you're doing? I always tell people, because I'm just glad that I'm able to do this for any number of women that choose to watch and learn, because it's all about learning. I tell people, black and white, write it down. What are your interests? And when you write it down, what interests have you not done in the past 3 weeks or 4 weeks? Then it's really not your interest. What are the things that interest you? Do it like a schedule of some sort or a table. Does it give you joy? If it doesn't give you joy, put it there. It doesn't give you joy. Write it down. Then when you write down and you choose my interests, my habits, am I profiting from them and am I profiting from them? That's number 1. Then number two, you decide for the ones that you think are profitable to you. You begin to build on them. And in building on them, you also begin to build on your strengths. What are your strengths? You see somebody who is saying she wants to move forward to go and do something in an area that she has absolutely no clue. It has something to do with learning. It's good to learn, but most times start from known to unknown when you're moving forward. So even if you're moving forward and it's new, you have an idea. Nobody just jumps into the deep end like that. You must have spent time researching what you want to do. You understand? Because nothing comes upon us as a surprise, really. Especially when it's a major life choice. It's just like when you say you are fat, you want to lose weight. You don't just wake up and say, I'm losing weight today. You begin to, research the options, whether you want to do ketogenic, whether you want to do, what are the names of this fasting? Cambridge, whatever kind of diet you want to go into, you'll have researched it. And you'll now find out which one are my strengths. You will find out the kind of exercises. Not everybody will do aerobics. Not everybody will do jogging. Not everybody will go on the treadmill. You begin, and that's exactly the same approach to any other thing we want to do in life. You must know that not everything comes naturally to everybody. You can decide you want to be a hairdresser, but you're not that person who plaiting of hair comes naturally to, as it was doing some girls in school those days. So if you're not sure of where to begin, start from your strong points. Build from there. That thing you are moving into may not be love at first sight for you, but guess what? Because you have an interest, you begin to build. You begin to develop yourself. Till you ultimately you'll sit down and say, wow, I did it. I'm there. I did it. I'm there. So finally, I've spoken of the things we need to start doing when we move forward. And I now talk about the practical things. If you're watching, or you eventually watch this, take pen and paper out, bring it out. Begin, start to write. Number one step, write it down. Things I will not do again. I'm not joking. Things I will not do again. Write it down. Begin to write it. What are those things about me? What are those things about me that I have done that have been counterproductive to my life, that have been counterproductive to all that I've been doing? Write it. I know what you call it. Call it a stop doing list. It's crazy, right? Call it a stop doing list. Begin to figure out everything. Write it. Why do I have to stop doing it? I say I want to leave this job. Why do I want to leave the job? I say I want to move on from this relationship. Why do I want to move on from this relationship? Begin to list it out. Begin to list it out. When you list out all those things, on those things, you now do the things I can do first. From that, things I want to stop doing this. Things I have to stop doing this. The things I know I can do first, the portions. I want to leave my job, Abby. Do I have to write a letter to my boss? Do I have to start teaching my colleagues what I need to do? Pick the one that is important and start doing it. Before you finish on that list, you see that there's a progressional way you want to do that. Even if you want to start a new business, you will now start. Like you see most people, I see some people in the hair industry. You believe me, some women who are doing like natural hair, big natural hair salons and all that. Do you know how they first probably started? They first started writing about natural hair. Because after you finish your things you stop doing list, you don't have to do that list that called things I have to start doing. Her dream is to open a big lesson, natural hair salon. It won't happen like that. She probably starts writing about natural hair. But when you see her social media engagement, you know that she loves natural hair. She's talking about it. She's doing it. So even by the she probably has a blog, talking about hair care and all that. So by the time you now start a salon, people will know, okay, it's obvious that she had an interest. We noticed she was gradually progressing to that. Then maybe you want to leave your job, you want to go to start teaching, and people are saying you maybe Normally you will just teach some children. There must be something on that list that you have to start doing before you venture out. All of this comes under your self-care. Because if you love yourself, say you want to go and start a human hair, naturalist salon, because I'm a naturalista. So that's the area I seem to know. You will see that one of the things you consider techniques, where you get products, where you will do so many things, even before you started the salon. So these things are what should constitute your practical sessions. And that's why I say at the end of something like this, sit down with pen and paper. If it's your tab you use or whatever it is, if you choose to do it on a whiteboard or whatever, take yourself as a project and say, project me moving forward. Things I will stop doing lists, how I will stop them. You understand? We have a to-do list, but how I'll stop them, the not to-do list. Then we now have the to-do list. And my hope and my prayer is that whatever your decision is, as you choose to move forward at the end of this, as the world is gradually reopening and all that, you do the right thing. You make sure you don't move ahead with things you shouldn't let get in your way, which is all about part one. Part two, remember the things you need to stop doing. And of course, part three, which we just discussed today, things we need to start doing. So let me do a quick recap. Number one, I said accept your flaws and imperfections. I said, remember, not everybody is perfect. We are not even perfect. So the earlier we accept our flaws and imperfections and probably decide to work on them, but not building a monument to them, the better for us. Number two, we have to learn to see the positives and the negatives and be grateful. Remember, you're choosing to leave a career instead of getting all disgruntled about it. Remember that career was paying your way. That career was putting food on your table. So think about the positive things, positive side of all those things you're giving up before you move on. Number three, focus on the future, but not in an obsessive way. You can't afford to be obsessed about the future because we really, really cannot change anything. So we must embrace the step by step process. And to do this, don't think about constantly comparing yourself to people who have gone ahead of you because you do not understand their process. The challenges you're going through, they're probably going through more worse than yourself, but you do not know because they seem to be managing and you can manage right as well. Then number four, think and believe yourself into being. Remember, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Become those things that aren't, act as if they are already there. The Bible says, speaking of things that aren't as if they yet were, what's the mental picture you see when you choose to move on? Number five, pat your own back. Remember, I said this was a take home from Tara Fela Durotoye of the House of Tara. Learn to pat your back, and I choose to call it have some self-compassion. Practice self-compassion for yourself. Then six, revisit and rebuild your circle. This is not the time you need negative interactions. You need positive interactions. Sieve your circle and rise up stronger and firmer. And finally, self-care. Love yourself. Except you love yourself, you cannot move on successfully. And not forgetting at the end of the day, I said the practical part of this thing, get pen and paper, get your tabs, not to-do lists, to-do lists, and one step at a time. God bless you. And just before I forget, on the 30th of August 2020, we'll be having our Power Half or Power Moves, the first edition in the series, and we'll be discovering how to move forward in our careers. How, in this season, so many of us do not have any form of career visioning or career planning. So there will be a HR expert in the house to take us full on this. August 30th, it's on Zoom. It's going to be broadcast here on The Woman Called You, but it's better you get on the Zoom platform because it's much more interactive. The flyer is on the page, and I'm sure I'll put a link for those on YouTube to click. So Below, you click on the link if you're watching from YouTube to attend the seminar, since registration is compulsory. Thank you. Till the next time, God bless you.